Hi everyone, my name is Melissa Nall. I'm a registered dietitian and I'm part of the Body 20 Nutrition Doctor team. And in today's video, I want to talk about Braai Day, which is basically this weekend. And I think a lot of us, especially with the weather that's, heating up, are super excited to get outside and braai and just enjoy our beautiful country and its beautiful weather, hopefully this weekend. But I think with Braai Day and us as South Africans loving, meat and starch and those types of things, but together with that, maybe you're trying to lose weight or you have a specific health or fitness goal, you might be a little bit worried as to how are you going to manage this Braai Day and any other Braai days coming up or braais that you might be going to with friends and or family. So in today's video, I just want to give you a few tips to think about when you are planning your menu for Braai Day or any other braai occasion that might help you just to keep to the healthier side of our tradition as South Africans, but then also still enjoy it and still be able to really, have that social time with friends and family. So let's jump right in. So the first point that I want to make in terms of braaiing or caring or having a social with friends or family is to be mindful of the calories and also the sugar content of the things you drink. It's quite often that I see that people forget about the fact that we are consuming calories in the form of drink as well, not just food. And that might be one of the biggest reasons or areas where people get kind of caught and feel like, yes, they're not seeing the progress that they want, but they are really checking their diet in terms of what they eat very well. So be mindful of what you drink. So in that sense, I want to talk about alcoholic and non-alcoholic beverages especially. So let's talk about the alcoholic beverages. So alcohol, unfortunately, does have quite an interesting effect on our bodies, not just our brains. But we see that when alcohol gets metabolized, that it actually gets metabolized in a strange way in the body. So alcohol typically contains sugar because, it's either from grapes or from another form of grain or whatever it might be, and then it gets distilled, but then the sugars are still present in that alcohol. So typically if we look at how glucose or sugar gets metabolized in the body, is that there's an insulin response. So insulin gets released from the pancreas to then actually take that sugar from the blood into the cells, right? So that's what should happen. And then of course the cells use that glucose or that sugar as energy source to do their job. If we see that there's too much sugar with not enough insulin, or maybe there's a lot of insulin, but the insulin isn't very sensitive to, or the cells aren't sensitive to the insulin, we see that that sugar actually doesn't move from the blood into the cells. It actually gets caught in the blood and then it pushes up the blood sugar levels. The body gets stressed and it says, oh, we need to get rid of this sugar. And what it does is it actually then converts that sugar into fat that is stored around your stomach, typically everywhere else as well, but especially around the stomach, and also the organs called the visceral fat. And that's why we call it a beer boop, because unfortunately beer has a lot of sugar in it, and that then often gets converted to fat around the belly. And it actually gets converted into fat around the belly a lot more than normal food would, because we see that as soon as alcohol is consumed, it actually kind of confuses or tricks the brain into not noticing that it is a sugar, but actually thinking that it is a fat, which then leads to the body not releasing a sufficient amount of insulin to actually then absorb that sugar into the cells. And then of course that whole ripple effect happens where the sugar is then in the bloodstream, and then from there it doesn't actually reach the cells, and then it increases the blood sugar levels and then gets stored as fat. So we need to be careful with the amount of alcohol we drink in terms, if we are looking at losing fat or managing our weight. And then of course, if in that same sense, when you are going to drink alcohol, of course, use it moderately, but then choose alcoholic beverages that aren't as high in sugar, like your ciders would be. Ciders typically like Hunters or your Brutal Fruits and those types of things are packed with sugar. So if you can, try to avoid them and rather go for things that are lower in alcohol and or lower in sugar or sugar-free. So think about your was your hard liquor if you want, so vodka, lime, and soda, or maybe if you're going to do brandy and Coke Zero. If you can do whiskey, that's a great option. If you're going to do gin, go with a sugar-free tonic if possible. If you're going to do wine, you can always go for the light wines, or then make your wine into a spritzer, or just try and alternate your glass of wine with a glass of water just to spread out the time a little bit, especially if you are going to start having your braai day earlier and then carrying on until late. So that's in terms of alcoholic beverages. And then of course, in the same sense, your non-alcoholic beverages, the same thing. We need to look at things that are lower in sugar. So try to go for your lighter or zero options where possible. And then of course try to incorporate as much water, and try to spruce up your water, make it fun by adding some lemon, or maybe some mint leaves or cucumber or fresh fruits or frozen fruits or whatever the case may be, to just revive the water up a bit. Sparkling water is also fine, just so that you don't drink your alcohol or your maybe even non-alcoholic beverages because you're thirsty, but rather having water for that and just enjoying the other beverages. So I've spoken a lot about beverages, so that's the first thing. Be careful that you don't consume all your calories in the form of drink. So let's move on to food. Okay, first of all, when it comes to braaiing or social events or just food in general, I always say that try to go back to basics. Try to be as simple as possible and use your herbs and spices and natural flavorings rather than going for sauces and marinades as far as possible. So if you are going to braai meat, go for something like a fillet that's nice and lean, or even ostrich burgers if you can, or go for your lean meats in terms of a burger that's maybe made from lean mince. If you can make your own patties, or then buy lean mince patties. If you're going to go for chicken, you can always marinate the chicken yourself by using a little bit of olive oil, but then really using things like your lemon or lemon juice, your salt, pepper, garlic. You can use rosemary, you can use rosemary and sage grind, you can use your chicken rubs, you can use lamb rubs. There's so many different herbs and spices you can find in Pick n Pay or Woolies or any other of your supermarkets, and that really elevates the dish a lot and it doesn't actually add any calories. Whereas if you go with a marinade that's pre-made, it's often sweeter. There's often a lot of other stuff added to it to really improve the taste and to also extend the shelf life, which is unnecessary. So go for things that are naturally calorie free, like I've just mentioned, and things that you can make yourself. Marinate your own meat so that you know exactly what you put in it. So that's the first tip that I have. And then of course, what we typically do as South Africans, we love starch. So we often have potatoes or potato bake or potato salad, or your rice and potatoes, or whatever the case may be. So where you can, try to incorporate a lot more veggies into the braaiing, the braai day or the social that you're having. Try to make interesting veggies, or again, keep it simple. Things like roasted veggies, or you can make vegetable skewers that you can even put on the braai with the meat if you don't want to cook veggies in the kitchen. Or salad. I mean, with the weather heating up, salad is super easy to put together and make it interesting by adding, a nice vinaigrette, again, made from like lemon juice and nice and herbs and those types of things. So really spruce it up by incorporating a lot of colors and textures and those types of things, and as many vegetables as possible. So if you think about your plate, if you have your plate, you can divide it in half, and the one half you want to fill up with vegetables and salad, and the other half then you divide between your starch and your protein when it comes to actually every meal that you eat. And that's typically the plate model that we advocate, as we see that is an easy way to control your portions. The last point that I want to make when it comes to braai day or socials is the snacks. So the snacks are often also where we get or run into trouble. So make sure that you are not extending the time that you're going to eat food by too long, where you end up having lots of snacks. And if you are going to have snacks, choose your snacks wisely. So make sure that they are things, again, that are lower in calories and not too processed or heavily sugar laden or carb laden. So we often see our typical snacks would be chips, it would be biltong and drivels, those types of things. So that's not necessarily wrong, but maybe opt for your lower calorie chips. You get so many interesting crisps nowadays in your supermarkets that are less or lower in fat. You can go for biltong rather than drivels, because biltong is lower in fat, or leaner cut of biltong. Nuts are also a good option, however they are high in calories, so don't have hands full of them, and alternate them maybe with some vegetable sticks like your carrot sticks, cucumbers. You can have baby tomatoes, you can do those baby corns. You can have a very nice dip like a hummus that's reduced fat, which is really quite low in calories and nice and high in nutrients. So really just try and have a variety of snacks available, and try not to sit around the snack table. Maybe, move around the room, try to talk to a few different people, and not just sit around the snack table where it's super easy just to shove things in your mouth. So those are the I would say 4 main tips that I have, or 5, is to make sure you don't drink all of your calories, so be conscious of that. Make sure to go for the simpler, more basic type of meats where you can maybe marinate or spice it yourself with things that are naturally free of calories, so typically your herbs and spices, lemon juice, and those types of things. Have as many vegetables and salad ingredients as possible, and fill up half of your plate with that. And then of course with the starch, limited to only 1/4 of your plate. And then of course the snacks, be careful of the snacks. So those are just a few things that you can do, and even though it might not feel super drastic or super big things that you're now all of a sudden only gonna eat a small portion of this or that or other, or you're not going to have a Braai or whatever, it doesn't need to be major changes that you make. You can make smaller changes, and that's actually going to have the big effect at the end of the day, because it's things that's going to be more sustainable. So I hope this has been helpful. If you have any questions, let us know, and I'll see you in the next one.